Player 17 has entered the game. Be Quiet. Be Quiet is in the custom loop all-in-one business now. This is the Pure Loop 360 millimeter. These are available in a bunch of different configurations, all the way down to a single fan, 240, 280 millimeter, whatever you want. And they're also really, really reasonably priced. Don't take my word for it. Let's look at what you get in the box. Pure Loop. It's a pure loop, all right. It's a pure loop-de-loop. It's a pure loop of insanity. It's a pure loop of something. It's made for those boosty CPUs. Those extremely boosty CPUs. You thought I was talking about AMD, but no, I'm talking about the thermal velocity boost on the 10900K. Okay, yes, I'm actually also talking about AMD. Some exciting things on the horizon there. That TDP just keeps creeping upward, at least on Team Blue. Is the same thing happening on Team Red? You probably know the answer before I do. But this is the 360 millimeter Pure Loop. Now, turns out there's a company called Asetek that owns a lot of the patents around custom loop coolers, so you got to get creative if you want to do an implementation. And they certainly have that nodule, the bulbous lump here in the tubing. That's actually the pump. So they put the pump in the tubing. Normally the pump is located on the cold plate, but that's not the case because Asetek owns the patent on that. Now the first thing I see, it's not a copper cold plate. Will it be able to keep up? Yeah, I'm gonna do a comparison, but let's look what else you get in the box. So in the box you get mounting kits, mounting gear, all of the stuff that you need to mount this on socket 1200. That's the 10 series CPUs, older Intel CPUs, basically everything except Threadripper. So AM4 is in here as well. And it does replace the existing plastic clip AM4 mounting mechanism. So you gotta unscrew the clips and screw some stuff that comes in the box in, and then you can screw that into the brackets that come. I prefer the kind of coolers that just snap into the existing plastic. Although this is a purely metal and mechanical solution, it does provide a little bit more mounting pressure from what I understand, but it can be a lot more mounting pressure because that's actually in the specifications. How hard you press down into the CPU is a thing. You can't press too hard, so I don't know. Be Quiet coolant. It's not something else. It's something that Be Quiet has given you, and they expect you to keep up with for the next 2 years. Yeah, you don't touch it, you don't open it, you don't do anything with it. You put it on the shelf, you put it in the box, you hang on to this for about 2 years, because that's when they figure that your cooler will need a little bit of a top up, because no matter what you do with a custom loop cooler, a little bit of the cooling fluid is going to leach out. But that means that you do, yes indeed, have a fill port. That's Dr. Fill port to you. The fill port here you can unscrew and top up with this so that you've got, you know, a bunch of fluid in there and then it'll fill. But that also means that, you know, the standard Gamer's Nexus mounting scenario where the tubes go to the bottom with the fill port at the top, everything else in the box is pretty standard issue. We've got 3 Be Quiet Pure Wings 2 fans. These fans are a maximum of 2,000 RPM. They'll move a fair bit of air, but even at their max RPM, they're not super loud, so they're not moving insane amounts of air. But it's more of, you know, you can kind of already tell I've already had this apart, put it back together, had it apart. It is more than sufficient for moving air through the radiator. And then of course you've got a little installation pamphlet that explains some of the materials that came with the custom loop cooler and all that kind of stuff. This is a new product. I feel like it's probably fair to do a comparison. So this is going to be our comparison system. This currently has a Corsair 280 millimeter cooler in it. This is an older Corsair. It does have the thumb screw clip style mounting mechanism, which I've already said that I like a little bit more. But 280 millimeters versus 360 millimeters, that's not truly an apples to apples comparison, but it's because I don't have a 360 millimeter Corsair cooler. 280 and 360 millimeters are supposed to be about the same cooling capacity. So what we're going to do, put this machine on the test bench, run through some benchmark scenarios, some gaming benchmarks and some other benchmarks with our CPU, which is a 3950X. Now this is a stand-in for a CPU that's coming. So if you got a tower cooler that's really good versus, you know, an AIO, there's more stuff that can fail on an AIO. There are a lot of arguments for using a tower cooler, but as CPUs get more and more boosty, maybe looking at AIOs makes a little more sense. And the reason I say that is because I had better luck on my Intel 10900K getting the 5.3 gigahertz thermal velocity boost to work a little more reliably with the custom loop cooling in the ASRock Aqua system. I've been gearing up to be able to redo some gaming testing, you know, should anything happen to maybe gonna launch soon, possibly. I haven't really done anything yet, but we want to see, you know, what's going on. So I've got the ASRock Aqua system, and with the 5.3 gigahertz, built-in Intel boost, that actually does work really well on that custom loop system. Of course, that is fabulously expensive. And this, by bypassing the Asetek patents and some of the other stuff, it's trying to address a lower price point in the market, just over $100 US. And $100 US for a decent 360 millimeter AIO is not bad, but it really just comes down to performance. All right, we've got our build set up on the workbench. It's a little messy. You're gonna have to forgive me for that. I've had Prime 95 running for some time. Prime 95 has periods of really intense usage and then less intense usage and really intense usage. And it's entered a period of less intense usage, but this has been running for a while. As you can see from our hardware info 64 graphs and some other details, we topped out at 80-some degrees C, which is after the loop has had enough time to come up to temperature. Well, actually, it'll hit that temperature pretty quickly, and then the pump kicks up and the fans kick up, and you can kind of hear it in the microphone. It's not the quietest. It's not a vacuum cleaner. It's not a blower-style GPU, but it's not quiet either. Let's swap in our bequiet. Now again, 280 millimeter to 360 millimeter, not exactly apples to apples, but usually the performance is pretty close. So I'm expecting the bequiet is going to be a little bit better than the 280 millimeter. Subjectively, my experience is that 360 millimeter radiators in general are a little better, but 280 millimeter radiators are a little quieter. And also keep in mind that this cooler is older and has been in operation for a while. It's not brand new out of the box. These coolers will age a little bit. They'll lose their coolant and that kind of thing. And it's perhaps not an ideal situation because the tubes won't reach to the bottom even when I have the pump the right way up, but there's a good reason for that too. The results are kind of interesting. Not a lot different than I expected. Pure Wings 2 are louder than I expected. It's about the same. It's about on par with the Corsair 140 millimeter fan in terms of fan sound, but also they're moving more air than I expected through the radiator. I figured the radiator would put up more of a fight, or that it would be a little more difficult to move that much air through the radiator, but it's doing a really good job. I've given it a fair bit of time here. I've basically come back the next day, and it's not really, it's heat soaked, obviously, but I think that at least for this configuration on the 3950X CPU, that the performance of the all-in-one exceeds what the CPU can actually dump into it. So we never really get to a really high temperature because I'm touching the radiator and it's not really even warm to the touch. It feels cool, so it's probably around the temperature of the room. A little bit warmer, obviously, but it's not as warm as I expected. Just subjectively for gaming workloads and stuff like that, where the 3950X really needs the perfect thermal and power conditions to be able to boost appropriately, this provided that. So I'm real excited about what's coming with the Ryzen 5000 series presentation, which literally just happened. So it's going to be exciting. I'm Wendell, this is Level 1. This has been a quick look at the bequiet Pure Loop all-in-one CPU cooling solution on an AM4 motherboard. It did pretty good. Alright, I'm signing out. I'll see you later. Oh, if you pick up one of these, let us know what your experiences are in the forums, the Level 1 forums. I'm going to sign out, and I'll see you there.